You will probably see a trend in today's video where I would favor one hero class more in raid and the other one in dungeons. Hey everyone, my name is Scruffy. Previously, we have taken a long deep dive into all tank hero classes on the War Within Alpha and provided some damage numbers for feedback. Today, we are going to take a look into all healer hero classes. The War Within beta is about to be launched and we are doing a deep dive into all 14 hero classes for the 7 available healer specs. Because the beta is launching soon, we are already uploading our dungeon guides here on YouTube, so if you want to stay tuned, please make sure to hit that subscribe button if you think I deserve it. You can also feel free to tune into my Twitch stream or check our written guides on your MMO. And without further ado, let's hop into the healer hero classes in the War Within. Starting with the Monk today. I was already pretty aware of one of the hero classes, the Master of Harmony. Similar to the Monk tank, you store vitality by dealing damage or healing, which then unleashes after using Thunder Focus Tea to deal either more healing or damage over time. We used similar talents to the current Mistweaver in the Dragonflight Season 4. This hero class did not require any special talents. Anyways, our talent tree has seen already some massive changes and some abilities were either removed or changed completely. Chi Wave is now a passive, but we still focus on more AoE, so we went with Chi Burst. Dampened Harm is gone and replaced by Fortifying Brew in its position. Soothing Mist is no longer a skill that is automatically learned as Mistweaver, so it has to be skilled. Teaching of the Monastery is now automatically learned and no longer a talent. Train Style, which causes Rising Sun Kick, Blackout Kick and Spinning Crane Kick to trigger Gust of Mist, has replaced its spot. We otherwise remained a similar talent tree, but noticed something strange. Zen Burst is now a passive and does not deal any damage anymore. All testing logs can be found in the video description. Instead, you have a chance that your Vivify triggers a Zen Pulse on all players with Renewing Mist, which heals them. Back to the Master of Harmony hero class. Most noticeable change are the second charge of Thunder Focus Tea we gain. Otherwise, Aspect of Harmony stores damage and healing dealt, and unleashes that stored amount after Thunder Focus Tea as healing or damage. The stored vitality can even proc with Overheal, so you will be able to gain a lot of vitality quick with your HOTS running. But on the other hand, this also unleashes it in an unpredictable way. If you're looking for extra damage to deal, we have to skill Harmonic Gambit to cause our main damage abilities to use the vitality as damage, otherwise it would be pure healing. Also in our group test, I sometimes hope to deal a bit more damage with it, but it already released all vitality by the healing over time effects I had running on other players. You can theoretically aim towards more damage by just not giving them any HOTS, but that requires a lot of foresight, knowing if there will be any upcoming damage you might have to heal or not, and then react quickly and track the duration of your HOTS. Healing done by Ancient Teaching is also affected by it. Similar to the Brewmaster, the Master of Harmony is rather passive and just makes your healing spells have more wombs. Might be great in raids, but for now, it couldn't convince me either in our dungeon test as in our solo test. We run the same test with our healer as we did for tanks. It's just more complicated. Solo tanking a dungeon boss as a healer is quite difficult for now, but it gave me a great idea how I would play and do damage in situations where healing is actually required to keep me alive. The Master of Harmony Monk did not really convince here either. Instead, the infamous Conduit of the Celestials hero class convinced me way more, making me heal and tank this boss fairly easy. Celestial Conduit is a new ability with 90 seconds cooldown. It's a channel cast over 3 seconds, dealing a lot of healing and damage onto enemies and allies at the same time. Your Vivify and Tiger Palm have a chance to make Xuan rush to your target to deal damage and heal an ally for its damage. And after this proc, your next Enveloping Mist summons Neo Cao to grant an Absorb Shield to 5 allies for 4% of their maximum health. And your Spinning Crane Kick or Refreshing Jade Wind has a chance to trigger Shiji as well. This felt really cool. Remember all these Celestials on the Timeless Isle? You play now with all of them. Oh, and we forgot Yulon, who grants you a large cooldown reduction on many spells after consuming 16 stacks of Shailen's Gift. And up next, whenever Shiji or this proc Yulon even is active, you get Refreshing Jade Wind for that whole duration. And the cycle continues that this Jade Wind can trigger Shiji again and so on. Your final talent allows you to use your 90 seconds cooldown a second time, calling upon all of these Celestials and trigger them with 200% effectiveness. I cannot believe how much I like this. All hero talents interact with each other and make total sense with class fantasy. Beware if I talk about numbers that it is really hard to interpret healer logs, but damage wise, both hero specs could be an increase of 20% with all their talents. If Master of Harmony wouldn't steal my damage and uses it for healing. Healing wise, the Conduit of the Celestials is mostly stronger, but this could be questionable in even larger groups. The Paladin healer had an interesting roller coaster of the last few seasons. The rework in Dragonflight Season 2 made them the undefeatable king of healers, which then was nerfed in Season 3 and resigned since then in the bottom of all healers. If you have seen my video about the damage test for tanks, you also know that there is a very high expectation now from them. Lightsmith Paladin gets another group buff, the Holy Armaments. It has 2 charges and rotates between Holy Bulwark and insanely large Absorb Shield for yourself and other players. The Sacred Weapon is a group buff to deal extra damage. So to speak, the Lightsmith is an augmentation evoker who provides more damage and, most important, survivability to your party. The numbers for tanks were absolutely through the roof, completely broken and just not in touch with other classes. The hopes were really high now for the Holy Paladin to follow that trend. And oh boy, I don't know what happened with our tanks, but the Holy Paladin is far away from that performance. I really do enjoy the group buff interaction for tanks, because I wanted tanks to look into their party frame or raid frame and apply buffs to people, throw them an extra heal or two, and be more than just a solo player. The Holy Paladin as a healer usually has to already watch their party frame, and the group buffs feel more just like another button to press to heal them. The output also does not convince. The damage is super low, absolutely not the same as the Paladin tank. There's no hidden interaction in this hero class that I have to explain any further. You buff another player, you get the same buff as well, and sometimes you proc randomly another buff for more players. The Holy Bulwark is super strong. It heals way too much. This would make the Prot Paladin such a nice addition to your party, making everything you do in a dungeon more safe. The healer is, yeah, it's just another heal. Strong, but just another heal. Even I am amazed by how uninterested I am in this as a holy compared to a tank paladin. It's just that it's already my job to keep people alive. Let's look into the one that is not available for Prot Paladins and was completely new to me. Herald of the Sun Paladins have the Dawnlight ability, causing their next 2 holy power spenders after using Holy Prism to apply Dawnlight, dealing heal or damage to players or enemies hit. You use Holy Prism every 30 seconds. Afterwards you can Shield of Righteous to put a dot on enemies, or Light of Dawn or Word of Glory to put a hot on players. And hots, heal over time effects, is the theme of the Zero class. 10% of Dawnlight's heal or damage radiates to other players / enemies. Word of Glory will be permanently replaced by Eternal Flame, healing just a bit more than Word of Glory, but also having a hot applied afterwards. Your Holy Shock and Light of Dawn crits apply a hot over 4 seconds as well, and during Avenging Wrath, you pulsate heal / damage to everything around you, and even apply Dawnlight to 4 additional enemies / players. With standard UI, I really loved how permanently green numbers were popping up over players. I felt like I was playing a Resto Druid, which I have been playing way too much recently. This hero class felt right. I know this might not be the best adjective to describe my opinion about it, but my abilities had literally lasting effects on my group. Sure, the Holy Bulwark from the Lightsmith is really strong and very passive, but the Herald of the Sun feels like I'm outputting here. So what do I think is stronger? Both will be used in my opinion. Once again, I think that Herald of the Sun might be very strong in raid, where your damage is not necessarily needed and you mostly keep on pressing your healing buttons all the time to keep like 20 people alive. The Lightsmith will not be able to compete with the Herald of the Sun in raid. You cannot put your Holy Bulwark on enough people, maybe like 3 if you're lucky. This one is going to be great for Mythic Plus. It allows you to have some safety measures on players if they are going to take huge damage, and you can focus on topping the heals and also do damage. Yes, dear healers, shocking news, but there will be situations in Mythic Plus dungeons where you don't have to spam heal. How about pressing a damage button? Buttons like Consecration, maybe a Sunfire as a Resto Druid, or that's why you skill Acid Rain as a Shaman. It helps and makes everything faster. And sorry, a little mental breakdown in between about healers in retail, literally AFKing in my dungeons all the time. Oh, Discipline Priest. Do you remember your rework in Season 3 and Ultimate Penitence being hyped by so many people? It looked so crazy, but nobody uses it anymore. What a disappointment. So, are you ready today for a disappointment too? No worries, I also have some good news for you. Starting with the bad news first. Oracle Priest was the most hated hero class that Blizzard has previously announced. It quadrupled down on power infusion, replacing it by a new ability that rotates around and does different things to buff different people. People hated it, and it sounded weird. Blizzard has changed that and give us now Premonition as a healing cooldown. Instead of this being power infusion to buff someone else, this is now a personal cooldown which rotates around like Blessing of Summer from Holy Paladins. Look, I already think this might be better in raid, but it's just weird. In raid, I would skill Evangelism, which would provide me with an insane cooldown for larger groups. Premonition is just similar, but not good enough. Let's look into the other talents. 15% more absorbed by Power Word Shield is strong. Power Word Shield applies 2 stacks of Prayer of Mending, instant cast of Power Word Radiance after using Premonition, and 10% less damage taken by Pain Suppression are insanely strong passives. I cannot deny that. And to top things off, you can also use Leap of Faith a second time within 6 seconds of casting it first, so you can now double grief your other party members. These abilities could just be a passive class tuning, making me output more with the Discipline Priest. Premonition is just annoying in my opinion. 5% more healing done, and 50% of overhealing being redistributed. 3 spells get 5 seconds less cooldown, and your next single target heal increases the target's healing taken by 25%. And sure, after using all 3, the 4th use will activate all of them, but I'm a Discipline Priest. In dungeons, I make sure Atonement is on all players, and then I pump damage. I'm literally a damage leader that needs to use Power Word Radiance in between. I'm absolutely not excited about a rotating healing buff. In raids, where you skill Evangelism and more cooldown oriented heals, this will be probably good, unless the other hero class is not better in raids. Warning, yapping alert. I will have to say a lot about this next one. Looking into the Void Weaver Discipline Priest. Mind Blast opens a rift that travels to your enemy. Enemies caught in it will suffer damage over time. This has currently no AoE cap as well. Each penance bolt will empower it, making it larger, and the entropic rift explodes at the end to deal AoE damage, which is now evenly split. While the Void Rift is up, your smite becomes Void Blast. And here we go. Void Blast now deals shadow damage, which plays into your Twilight Equilibrium talent as well. Discipline Priest already alternate between holy and shadow spells. Each Void Blast increases the duration of the Void Rift up to 3 seconds, and Void Blast already does more than double or 3 times of the damage of smite according to the logs, and also with its talents has a 100% more heal with atonement, so it's 4 to 6 times stronger than smite. While entropic rift is active, your atonement also heals 10% more. Power Word Shield is 20% stronger, that's even more than Oracle Priest, and we have a talent that causes our Mindbender, which we already use, to become a Void Wraith, dealing up to 50% more damage depending on enemies' health. Void Weaver doubles down on shadow abilities for Discipline Priest. No matter if you like this class fantasy or not, the output is unmatched by the Oracle. Damage output is really strong, the heal is insane, and just perfect for mythic dungeons. Even for raid, this might be stronger than Oracle, if we really think about how weak Premonition feels. Oracle feels super passive, a few rather weak feeling, not saying they are weak, but it feels not powerful. Healing cooldowns, while the Void Weaver makes me output way more shadow damage, and it feels like each Mind Blast, I'm having a really strong healing and damage window for 11 seconds. It requires more haste than I had on the alpha, so I couldn't squeeze 2 penances into those 11 seconds to make the most powerful rift I could. Evoker is next on my menu. Right off the bat, our spec tree has seen a few changes. Some talents have been readjusted in their position, and 2 talents have their maximum points reduced from 2 to 1. This left us, when using similar talent tree than on current live servers, with 2 extra points to spend. We're spending this in Titan's Gift and Lifespark. Lifespark is a new talent, which was a tier set effect during Dragonflight. This trend will also continue over the hero classes as well. First, Chrono Warden is the overlap between Augmentation and Preservation. More tier set effects will come here into play. Chrono Flame replaces Living Flame, dealing 15% extra damage and healing. Our final talent causes all Empower spells to send out 3 more Living Flames as well. Hover is now a blink. And it even spawns modes that other people can pick up for 20% more movement speed. Most important gameplay changer here is Temporal Burst. When Tip the Scales is used, we gain for 20 seconds some cooldown reduction, haste and movement speed, which increases in intensity over time. During this buff, every Empower spell spawns Thread of Fate on a random ally, which gives them a chance to deal 15% extra damage sometimes. With Essence spells, we can even extend that duration. This changes our rotation a little bit, if we really want to make sure that other players have this buffer. Just make sure to use Tip of the Scales, then use Fire Breath, Dream Breath, and Spirit Bloom. Afterwards, make sure to spend essences to extend the duration. In our solo player test, I was fucking amazed how fast I kill our first test mob while keeping myself alive. According to the logs, in this fight I did double the damage of all previous healer, while also keeping myself alive. The monk had the easiest time on these tests, but now the evoker shocked me. We even killed the first boss in 4 minutes and 20 seconds, almost faster than some tanks in our previous videos. Chrono Warden grants you a little bit of what the augmentation worker would be, with the group buffs and causing other players to deal more damage, and doubles down otherwise on Living Flame users. In retail, I never wanted to use Living Flame to heal players. It's like a flash heal from priests, only used if really needed. Otherwise, for damage is great. The additional Living Flames either randomly do damage or heal, but the overall output of Evokers really convinced me. Flame Shaper therefore has a new ability, Engulf. Engulf heals or damages for a lot, has a 30 seconds recharge and 2 charges. Each hot or dot increases its output by 50%. This is the perfect emergency button that you need to heal your tank or damage an enemy. And Kindle makes your essence abilities to trigger a heal or damage over time effect, which makes Engulf even stronger now. Be careful with the extended hover. In our solo test, I did not mean to hover that far, especially on this boss where you have to stay close, and ended up dying at first. Otherwise, the output is similar. According to my logs, I did similar damage on both hero talents. So me being amazed about the Chrono Warden got dampened a bit. I had to bring the Evoker into a real group and test its damage and healing output. In the dungeon, I tested both hero classes, and oh boy, my damage was through the roof as well. Engulf is doing a lot of damage, and can be used for heal if needed as well. Sadly, in our tests, there was never enough heal needed for me to use it there, but for damage, it's awesome. Chrono Warden's Thread of Fate did not convince heal and damage. It would be an overall 3% of our damage, which would be great, additionally to the extra Living Flames you throw, but otherwise, Engulf is doing way too much damage and gives you finally that oh shit button I always wanted on my Evoker. As I said, I always hated hardcasting Living Flame to heal people, and Verdant Embrace is great for that. But other Evokers might relate to that, how you sometimes have a near-death experience when you get charged to the tank. I know Echo on the tank will help, but finally with Engulf, you have a great button that you can use either way, in the way it's needed in your situation. Gameplay-wise, I really have no favorite on this one, neither for raids or Mythic Plus. I would claim that Evoker are currently looking pretty strong in the War Within, and I do not see any group utility on both hero specs that would make one of them mandatory in a specific situation. I would probably switch around and play whatever I feel like in the moment. Most likely, I would go for Flame Shaper, because Chrono Warden feels like a budget augmentation evoker from Wish.com. Oh boy, Druid's next. And I have a confession to make. Yes, in my tests, my personal skills play a significant role. I played Evoker healer the least, compared to other healers, and Druid the most. Surely, I pulled off insane numbers on the Evoker, so I would claim that Evoker would be very foolproof and easy to get in. Druid, on the other hand, is a personal vendetta for me. Let me quickly explain Druid in itself. You have HOTS that you want to spread. You are a proactive healer, so you should maintain a few HOTS on players before damage comes in. Your Growth Guardians will heal a lot passively and can be used in all shapeshift forms. From there, you go into cat form and put some bleedings, rake and rip and thrash on enemies, and then back to Moonkin form to do some Moonfire and Sunfire and blast AoE damage with Starfire. So many Resto Druids that I encounter in retail skill into AoE Sunfire but never use it. Rip and Rake is way too powerful for Resto Druids, and all healers that I encounter that don't skill them are actually AFK in my dungeons. The downside is an insane button bloat. You have so many buttons and then use it in 3 different shapeshift forms. The War Within surprised me upon login how many buttons are gone. Starting with the Fluid Form talent. You automatically shift into cat form if you use Shred, so I don't need a hotkey for that anymore. Starfire would transform you into Moonkin form as well, and all of that saves you a global cooldown, but Moonkin form is gone. I was very surprised by that, but now skilling and interrupt is way more accessible, so you can go for that. Flourish now shares a spot in your talent tree with photosynthesis, so I made the decision to drop it completely and stay with photosynthesis. Adaptive Swarm is also just gone. Overall, I would call this now a nerf. Adaptive Swarm made your dots do more damage, Flourish was a strong heal cooldown, and Moonkin form was making you Starfire and AoE super strong. Call of the Elder Druid is a new talent at the position of Adaptive Swarm. Once every 1 minute, we get 10 seconds of Heart of the Wild after shifting into cat form. And then during Heart of the Wild, damage from your Shred, Wrath, Starfire, and Swipe do heal players by 100 or 150% of their damage done. Finally, the game tells players to do damage as Druids. I really don't like AFK players in my dungeon. Being completely pumped now for cat form damage, I spec'd into the first hero class, the Keeper of the Grove. This hero class doubles down on your Growth Guardians. Every Growth Guardian makes your next targeted heal to create Dream Petals, which heals for AoE. The more Growth Guardians you have up, the more heal you output as well. Otherwise, your Treants will also shoot Moonfire every 6 seconds, which is very convenient. Wrath and Starfire damage is increased as well, but also some of your healing spells. Using 5 regrowths makes your next Starfire instant cast, and every 5 Star Surges, you get an instant regrowth. So we're definitely looking more for boomy abilities, which is not too bad, but Rake and Rip have such a strong output for Resto Druids that you still don't want to miss out on that. In raids, I can immediately tell that you don't skill Rip and Rake, and with some free points in your class tree, Star Surge might be great. No more shapeshifting though, because Moonkin form is gone. Many players complain about Growth Guardians being too powerful. It lifts the most weight in your healing, and it frees your time to do other things, like AFKing, cooking a steak, rolling a cigarette, or actually doing damage in dungeons. I personally like this hero class, making me having more time for damage and focusing more on range abilities like Starfire, Wrath, and Star Surge. I would sometimes actually prefer to be a range instead of being a melee. Just think about the storming affix. Anyways, the next hero class now overlaps with Feral instead of boomies. Wildstalker is wild, absolutely wild. Rip and Rake damage have a chance to cause a bleeding on your target that does a lot of damage. And Wild Growth, Regrowth, and Efflorescence healing trigger another healing on players, which also can stack. With this hero class and your expected playstyle, you double dip into these bonuses. You put HOTS on players, summon your Treants to free you some time to do Rip and Rakes. Those dots and HOTS from this hero class also increase your damage output or heal output on targets with these effects on them. Damage and healing while in cat form is increased by 5%, and Moonfire and Sunfire damage is increased by 10%. Rip and Ferocious Bite damage is increased as well, and also Life Bloom, Rejuvenation, and Fluorescence. You see where I'm going with my introduction to Resto Druids. If you're currently supposed to put HOTS on players, Sunfire and Moonfire enemies, then go to cat form and put more dots on them, this is such an overtuned hero class. It literally empowers all abilities that you are supposed to use currently in Dragonflight. Sure, Adaptive Swarm is gone, so it has to compensate for that with the extra Heart of the Wilds, which line up with your Convo cooldown, by the way. You can also skill that your new dots and HOTS last longer and jump over to other enemies when they die, and you make them even explode to do some extra AoE healing or AoE damage. And And yeah, I didn't want to test this hero class in a real group because everything dies too fast for my dots to deal damage. But yeah, I killed the boss in our solo test in 2.5 minutes while keeping myself alive. Not a single tank from my previous video about their damage output was anywhere near this. Guys, are you ready for another season with Resto Druids just completely dominating the Mythic Plus scene? But please don't tell Blizzard, I'm a Druid main. Shamans are next on my list. I never liked them. I say it straight up. Powerhouses for raids in my opinion, because they play like bricks. Every cast I feel like a Kamehameha that I have to channel. So many hard casts, everything feels slow and clunky. Especially me as a Resto Druid main, I rather press 40 different hotkeys, which are instant cast, than 5 longer casts. The Shaman talent tree has not seen any changes for now, so we just went with the most used one from the current Dragonflight Season 4. Anyways, let's look into the hero talents. Totemic Restoration Shamans received the Surging Totem. This replaces your healing rain. This totem can have a 100% uptime and cast healing rain every 8 seconds below allies, randomly. I was a little worried because I want to use Acid Rain talent to deal damage with healing rain. Hopefully I don't have too many ranges in my group that bait this away from the enemies. While this totem is up, which should be 100% of the time, you do 3% more damage and healing. And every time you summon this totem, your next few healing abilities are empowered. This causes your next healing wave or healing surge to heal a second target. The cast time of any healing spell is reduced by 40%, and Chain Heal will apply Earth Living to all players hit. The most interesting is that Chain Heal will now finish chaining onto your totem, which then triggers a Chain Heal from your totem. And additionally to that, your Healing Tide and Cloudburst, or even totems like Mana Tide and Spirit Link, will cast a Chain Heal from themselves when summoned. So all in all, your healing rain is now a totem, one thing you have to think less about. Otherwise, all other totems in your healing rotation will cast a Chain Heal on players. The Tidecollar's Guard can be imbued onto your shield instead of your weapon, granting you 2% more heal and 3 seconds longer healing stream and Cloudburst totems. This once again screams raid healing for me. In our solo test, like the other healers, the Shaman could not get close to it. It requires a lot of heal and I ended up running out of mana at some point. Sadly on the alpha, a dungeon invite could take up to 9 to 10 hours, so I couldn't test it in a group setup. For dungeons, I cannot see this being a strong hero class. Having an insane amount of chain heals flying around screams raid healing for me. The healing rain summoned by this totem does not stack, so there will be always one healing rain every 8 seconds it respawns in a smart position. This is not necessarily putting it down onto the enemy sadly. Even in our solo player test, the extra Earth Living did heal a bit, considering it would be up onto 6 targets instead of 1 if you skill into Unleash Life. The additional Wind Barrier has a 30 seconds cooldown and grants you a shield for currently around 5% of your life. This is great, but in dungeons you take more damage in less time, maybe for raids where you're not supposed to take damage every few seconds. Let's hope the Farseer Shaman looks better. Call of the Ancestors causes our Unleash Life to summon an Ancestor for 6 seconds, which mimics your damage and healing spells. You can either skill to make them last 2 seconds longer, or making your Riptide having a chance to spawn an Ancestor as well. These Ancestors have a small chance to trigger a new Ancestor as soon as they expire, and also, as soon as they expire, they grant an Absorb Shield of around 2.5% of your current HP on an injured ally. Lava Burst and Riptide gain 5% increased output and a third charge. Your final talent should replace Nature's Swiftness and makes it spawn an Ancestor on use. Currently, this doesn't seem to work correctly because it doesn't replace Nature's Swiftness, but you still need to skill Nature's Swiftness, otherwise Ancestral Swiftness would not spawn an Ancestor. Overall, this is better. In our solo test, the Shaman still struggled hard. The Farseer at least improves both your damage and healing output, perfect for a dynamic situation like Mythic Plus. For raiding, which I couldn't test, having your Ancestor using similar spells as you might also be great. Unleash Life is already being used, currently in Dragonflight, as a raid talent, and not in dungeons. Sadly, the Shaman hero classes were not able to convince me to bring back my Shaman heal from Dragonflight Season 3, and he probably remains level 70 for now. Holy Priest is the only healer on our list today that share one hero class with another healer spec. I will skip explaining the Oracle Priest for now, because it has similar effects. Premonition is still the same, but instead of increased Absorb from Power Word Shield, it now increases the heal of Prayer of Mending. Prayer of Mending cast will also apply a Power Word Shield on your target, but not when it jumps to another target. Premonition now causes your next heal or Prayer of Healing to be instant cast. Overall, I do not want to really look into logs, because this should still be a gameplay test. I still refer to logs to make myself a good picture how these could play out later on in a raid situation. Oracle Priest for Holy feels way better in my opinion. Holy Priests are already stronger in raids than Discipline Priests in overall healing, which gives more value to the Oracle hero class. I feel the Holy suits the Oracle in class fantasy way more than it would the Discipline Priest. The Archon Holy Priest will now use Halo instead of Divine Star. Halo was already more favorited in raids currently in Dragonflight and Divine Star in Mythic Dungeons. Casting Halo also creates another Halo every 5 seconds for 10 seconds, and its radius is increased by 10 yards. Halos will now also return back to you, dealing damage and healing to everything it passes through again. Allies that are hit by your Halo take 10% increased healing from you for 5 seconds, which also lines up with your additional Halo spawns. Creating a halo will grant Surge of Light. Surge of Light is the talent in your class tree that grants you an instant use of flash heal. These flash heals now also heal 30% more. So all the free procs you gain within the 10-second halos are now way more powerful. And Surge of Light will now reduce the cooldown of Holy Word Sanctify by 4 seconds. To top things off, you gain yourself 10% more haste from your power infusion. If we look into current raid logs from Holy Priest, we can see that Halo would do 30% more heal with energy compression talent and then occurs 5 more times per use. Instead of 1 Halo that travels away from you once, you spawn 3 Halos per use, which again travel back to you, healing another time all players hit. Calculating this, Halo would be an 18.9% of the heal, making it now your strongest healing ability in this raid example here. Reduced cooldowns on Holy Word Sanctify and more procs of Surge of Light would make Holy Priest a real powerhouse of healing. I am a big fan. I actually do prefer hero classes that have a cool look to them. Oracle is just a passive buff you gain when you use it, but all the halos shooting from you has such a cool look to them, and it also has to look very nice for other players as well. Can't wait for less FPS in raids. Overall, I wanted to provide some insight how the hero classes for healers work and feel in the current state of the beta. Things will change, and all logs that I provide today will be redundant as soon as tuning will occur. Today, we should once again think more for class fantasy and how you enjoy playing a class instead of looking for the meta. As a Druid main, you probably know my favorite already. Some hero classes are way too focused on healing output, which would be great for raids, but then lacklustering in Mythic Dungeons. Sadly, we are living in a world where random players in the Dungeon Finder will look for the best outputting classes instead, even for lower keys, and some hero classes will not be brought into Mythic Dungeons therefore.